and time for a conversation with one of my favorite superintendents, Jessica Hutchison. How you doing this morning?
We're doing great. It's Tuesday. We're doing good.
Better than Monday? Did you have issues on Monday that you're glad you're past now and now it's on to Tuesday?
I didn't say that, but that might be the case. Yeah. Yeah.
Never a dull moment at the
Yeah.
school district. Yeah, and no matter what school district it is, there's always adventures.
Indeed.
Uh, well, one of the adventures that you had mentioned is not a bright spot in dealing with kids at school. Some bring some bad habits from home into the school that kind of conflict with school, yeah, rules and things. And one of those issues is vaping. And talk about that as to what's happening and how you're dealing with that.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And agreed, acknowledged. Normally I come on and I have lots of fun, exciting, positive things to talk
Right.
about. So this will be maybe the first that I'm not, but I do think that we've got some plans to kind of respond. So just a couple tidbits. So vaping in schools is not something that is necessarily new this year. It is relatively a new phenomenon in the terms of popular culture and having accessibility to it. But it has been kind of a rising concern in the last few years, particularly coming out of COVID, um, where kids were at home for a long time, and really had a lot more freedom and you know opportunity. So it's something that we've been kind of dealing with for a couple years now. It's also not a problem that's unique to LCO. This is something, as I talk to superintendents, locally and then in our conference and in the state throughout the nation, it's a concern everywhere. And part of it is
Yeah.
it's very easily to access. You can buy it at the gas station. It's easy to hide. If you're vaping, it's sometimes, lots of times it's odorless. Unless,
Mhm.
you see the big plume of vapor, that's really the only giveaway. And especially for nicotine, there's not really any immediate physical effects. So it's really hard. It's really hard to notice it and catch it and see it. I was talking to one of my colleagues, and years ago, decades ago, when I started teaching, um, kids smoked cigarettes, but that was kind of a dead giveaway if it was happening in the school or if it was
Right.
happening on campus. There's obviously an odor, you could smell it. This is a whole different scenario. Though some of the vapes you can smell, but a lot of them, if kids are trying to get away with it, they have figured out how to get away with it. So
Sure.
it's definitely something that is just a new gift that we've been given in the world of education to try and figure out a way out of. I think the reason why I wanted to talk to you today is that we've been seeing an increase or a rise, or maybe it's just more prevalent in the community. And so last week I was kind of at a frustration point, and I talked to some of our school board members, and I just kind of, it was like an informal conversation just about what we're seeing, what we're dealing with. And what I found and what we've been finding is that there's really a lack of understanding and awareness in the greater community about vaping, the health risks, how prevalent it is.
Right.
Um, and I think that's because it's not as bad as a lot of things that, people could be doing. It's not as bad as the opioid crisis that we're facing right now. And it's relative to those things, it's not as scary. But I think that there's a real need for more information for the community, for parents, for grandparents. I will say one of the things that I have learned in the last 2 weeks, and part of it is through, so when students are suspended for vaping, when they come back to school, they're required to do about an hour long vaping education curriculum with our health navigator. They
Okay.
go through a ton of health risks and preventative information and resources on how to quit. But one of the things that I learned, which I had no idea, is in one vape cartridge, in whatever canister.
Mhm.
The health navigator asked the student, how many cigarettes do you think that is? How many cigarettes do you think that's the equivalent of? And he said, maybe 1, 2, something like that. It's 40. It's 40
Wow. Oh
cigarettes. So
my.
if you're pounding through, a cartridge a day or two, that's a huge health. I mean, think about the impact of that on young pink healthy lungs.
Right.
It's very, very serious. So just that fact, I had no idea that. I wasn't aware of that.
Equal to 2 packs a day.
Yeah. And that's just if you're doing one cartridge, if you're having more
Yeah.
than one cartridge or sharing somebody else's. So I think there's that really kind of was an eye opener to me, that there's a lot more that I have to learn.
Right.
And then in talking to some of the school board members about, what it looks, what vape cartridges look like, what they can mask as, they can look as simple as like a USB charger or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet that a lot of families and parents have the same kind of naive, like, awareness that I do. So what we're trying to do is really tackle that head on, providing some health information to our students. A couple weeks ago, we had a whole high school assembly and provided some health risk
Okay.
information. And again, students that are found with vapes or vaping, they are required to do some health education. And we're also going to our October PAC meeting, which is the first Wednesday of every month. It'll be next Wednesday. We are going to shift gears. Instead of having our regular PAC meeting, and we're going to have some vaping education for parents, so they can come in and just get some resources, get some education, kind of see what the vapes look like, how to detect it, how to get help. We have heard from some high school students following our assembly. They approached our nurses and said, I know it's bad and I want to quit. I'm addicted and I don't know how. And
Right.
that's important to recognize, that we have young people that are struggling already with addiction, and trying to get them access to resources to help them quit, rather than stigmatize it or make it,
Yeah.
that's
And some of
not
this,
the goal.
as you mentioned, this all started brought, back to the COVID isolation times when kids were at home a lot. And maybe that was something that was modeled at home already. And to bring the parents in for some education about their students might help educate them on their own use. And hopefully the home model will be, let's quit this together and get healthier. The other thing I noted too, as some of these vape cartridges can actually contain THC. And these, obviously, you don't go to the corner store and get these, but kids get it just like we did in the olden days when we were doing
You're
pot
absolutely correct,
joints,
Mark.
and yeah, we got a hold of it. But yeah, a lot of these cartridges come with THC, and it doesn't smell like burning pot. It
Correct.
just, there's no smell to it at all. So
Right.
there's that issue too. Is it's not just nicotine, but it could be THC or any other drug chemical.
And that's the other concern, is that, a lot of times students are, they report that, they used a friend's vape, or they got it from somebody,
Sure.
on the bus or wherever. And many times they report that they don't know what's in it. And
Yeah.
that's terrifying to me, as an administrator, as a parent, as a community member. It's terrifying to me that they don't know what's in it and they still choose
And
to,
then still take
to
it.
use it.
Yeah.
That's a scary reality. And so that's really what our goal is going to continue to be, is, to educate kids, to make sure that they're aware, to educate parents, that it is a big deal. A lot of kids, tell us, my parents know I do it, and they don't care. It's not a big deal. And most of the time that's not the case. When we talk to parents, they don't know, or they aren't, in support of it.
Sure.
But I do think that there is a misconception. I remember I used to be a cigarette smoker.
Yeah.
And I remember when this phenomenon started, it was really pushed out as a healthy alternative to cigarette smoking. And it
Right.
was
Yeah.
better than cigarette smoking. And that's really a myth. It's really not accurate anymore. And I think a lot of people, especially people my age, have that idea that it's not that bad. It's a better choice than cigarette smoking, and it's really not. And the other reality that I think we're going to be seeing in years to come is that the technology of it is so new. We don't really know how it's going to have a long-term impact on health, on lungs, on, it's packed full of chemicals that are extremely toxic. What is that going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years in terms of long-term health risks and cancer and, those types of things? There's just not enough information out about it yet. We are working to try and bring some guest speakers into the school. That was something that really was the idea of the tribal governing board when I met with them last week, that, they really are in support of providing education to our students and to our families. And I believe there may be funding for that through the Jewel lawsuit settlement. So I don't mean to say that, if you get caught if you're vaping at school, there are going to be punitive consequences. You are going to be suspended. If it's THC, it is going to get referred to the county because that is an illegal substance. So there certainly are, traditional consequences to vaping in school. But the greater problem is that I really feel like it's a lack of awareness and understanding and education for the vast majority of kids and families. Right. And I also have to say that the tribe, having come out and taken a stance on this, and having, there is a tribal ordinance that,
right,
that bans the use, the sale, the distribution, the possession of vape and vaping devices on tribal property, and that includes the school. Our school resource officer has written citations for $100 this school year. So in addition to being not healthy and landing you out of school, it's also going to hurt the pocketbook too.
That's what I was going to mention when you were going through, all the different chemicals and things that could be out there through vaping. And I was just going to mention, that the tribe has outlawed or banned these uses of these devices on tribal property because they realize there could be some sort of public health hazard for the secondary, just like secondhand smoke. There's that secondhand inhalation of vaping, and who knows, the non-smoker, as with cigarettes, children in smoker homes inhaling that secondhand smoke were able to get cancer later on in life because of that. So there has to be a secondary health risk to the non-user as well, and that's why some of these bans have come out, because we want to protect the greater population.
Right. And and the reality is adults, they have the choice and the power to make their own decisions. And certainly that's not a realm that we want to have any, control or sway or say so. What is concerning is when we've had students vaping on buses. We have buses with 4-year-olds on them that they don't need to see it. They don't need to smell it. They don't need to be exposed to it. It's not fair to them. So it's a balancing act of, providing resources, education, and, support for kids, to try and get them to quit or to never have them start. And then also to provide some consequence to, if you are going to choose this option, these are going to be the consequences of that choice. So I am hopeful that the more we can have conversations like this on the radio, and the more we can bring it, to the school board and to, hopefully a public awareness campaign, and get information to parents. I don't think it's going to go away, but I do hope that we can minimize the health risks to kids in school and get back to, why we are here and what we are here to do, because there are great things happening here, and our students are, by and large, accomplishing exactly what we hope for them, and they're continuing to show up in large numbers. Our attendance rates are really healthy. We just finished our fall testing and wrapping up that. So there's a lot of really positive things that are happening at Le Coudray. Our girls volleyball team had a packed house last night and won their home game. So I don't want to cloud all the really great things that we've got. That was a not pun intended right there. I don't want to miss all the great things that are happening here, but it is an important thing that I think that families and communities need to be talking about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there are all the. I was going to ask you about the school athletics teams and how the seasons are going, because that's something that we can get our young people involved in. That is a healthy choice,
Absolutely.
because a lot of them will not be drinking, they won't be smoking, and they won't be using drugs if they're involved in, the likelihood that they won't be doing that because they're involved in after school sports and activities. And that's great to hear that the girls volleyball teams is getting the packed house. That gives them the attention that they want. They love that. They feed off of
Absolutely.
that, and just to have that physical activity is just great for
Well,
them.
and you know, it doesn't. I don't think it ends there. We have two students that just traveled to New York for and they're traditional powwow singers. We have kids that are participating in large amounts. They're going ricing. We just had 30 pounds of rice come off of Pacoiwang last
Wow.
Monday. So it's absolutely athletics, after school activities, extracurricular, but also making sure you have that connection to your culture, to your history, to who you are, as an Ojibwe person. All of those things are, I say it as a
Sure.
parent myself and as an educator. Busy kids, they stay out of trouble. And
Yep.
it's probably not the healthiest mindset as a parent, running all over the place and doing all of the things and trying to keep it straight.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think that if kids have an alternative, if they have something else to do, whether it be
Sure.
sports or whether it be the powwow club, it's
Or
going
Boys
to
and Girls Club.
correct Boys and Girls Club. It's going to give them a healthy outlet, and something besides that curiosity of I wonder what this is like, or I wonder what this feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Hutch, thank you so much for the update on this. And like you said, it's not a pleasant, topic to talk about, but it's necessary. We need to talk
definitely.
about it. We need to talk to the parents because a lot of this starts at home, and we need to bring the home into this community and say, here's what's happening with your young people. And a lot of times parents may not know about it because their kids don't tell them, they don't talk to them. We were all teenagers once, and we hated, we kept our doors closed and put signs up on the doors saying, privacy. And it's
Yep. And and that's not anybody's fault. That's not a
no,
judgment.
right.
That's teenagers are, naturally elusive. They are.
Right. So
Yeah.
again, giving parents those tools to understand, here's what's happening in the society of young people today, and here's the tools that they use for whatever activities they want. And like you said, some people may not even know what it looks like because it looks like a USB drive to them.
Yep.
And again, where kids are getting these from, it's illegal to sell that to them. But just as we did with cigarettes, we found somebody to buy it for us, and it's or they took it from their parents or
Right.
grandparents or whoever. So great awareness.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you for helping us get this word out. We're gonna keep spreading it, and I will give you updates on how it's going.
All right, Jessica Hutch, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah.